The Kronthak Empire's capital, a sprawling amalgam of obsidian spires and glowing crimson veins of energy, loomed over the desolate landscape of their homeworld. It was a planet built for war, its cities fortified and its skies patrolled by fleets of menacing starships. Within the Grand Council chamber of the Kronthak Citadel, King Vorthak sat on his throne of interwoven steel and bone. His piercing yellow eyes scanned the gathered nobles and military leaders, their towering, scale forms exuding an aura of superiority. "The humans are a stain on the galaxy," Vorthak declared, his voice reverberating through the chamber. "They hide behind diplomacy and alliances, hoping their words will shield them from reality. Cowards, every last one of them." There was no dissent among the council. The Kronthak prided themselves on their strength, having subjugated countless civilizations through brute force. To them, humanity was an anomaly, weak yet stubborn, daring to resist assimilation. "We will crush them," Vorthak continued. "But first, we offer them a chance to kneel. It will be a lesson to the galaxy that even the defiant must bow to Kronthak might." A wave of approval rippled through the chamber. A transmission was prepared, a message to humanity that would demand their unconditional surrender. Failure to comply would mean war, a war the Kronthak believed would be swift and decisive. On Earth, Ambassador Lawrence Brady sat in a dimly lit briefing room within the United Nations Orbital Command. He was a man of sharp contrasts, his suit immaculate, his rugged face marked by a faint scar along his jawline. Years of navigating interstellar politics had honed his instincts, and his reputation as a fierce advocate for humanity had earned him both admirers and detractors. The room buzzed with tension as a hologram of the Kronthak king materialized before the gathered officials. Vorthak's message played in ominous tones. "Earth, your time of defiance is over. Surrender your sovereignty and pledge loyalty to the Kronthak Empire, or face annihilation." As the hologram faded, silence filled the room. Brady leaned back in his chair, his fingers steepled. "They're testing us," he said, his voice steady but firm. General Paul Isner, a towering figure clad in a dark uniform, folded his arms. "It's not a test. It's a declaration of war. We should mobilize the fleet and hit them before they can act, and play right into their hands." Brady countered. "The Kronthak thrive on brute force. If we respond in kind, we'll confirm every assumption they have about us. No, we need a different approach." President Elias Grant, a silver-haired statesman, spoke up. "What do you propose, Brady?" Brady stood, his gaze sweeping across the room. "Send me to their capital. Let me remind them why humanity has endured for so long. They think we're weak. I'll show them the truth." The room erupted in a flurry of objections. General Isner was particularly vocal. "That's suicide. You'll be walking into the lion's den with nothing but words." Brady's eyes hardened. "Words can be sharper than blades, General. And if diplomacy fails, I'm prepared to deliver a message they won't forget." Reluctantly, the council agreed. Brady was given clearance for the mission with a single condition. If negotiations broke down, Earth's fleet would be ready to strike. The Kronthak homeworld was even more imposing up close. Brady stepped off the human diplomatic shuttle, flanked by two aides who looked uneasy in their formal attire. Alien guards clad in gleaming black armor towered over them, their weapons humming with latent energy. As they marched through the city, Brady's sharp eyes took in every detail. The oppressive architecture, the cold efficiency of the military patrols, the faint undercurrent of fear among the Kronthak civilians. It was a society built on conquest, but Brady noted cracks in the facade. The council chamber was a massive circular arena, its walls lined with spectators eager to witness the human envoy's humiliation. Brady strode to the center, his confident demeanor a stark contrast to the oppressive atmosphere. King Vorthak rose from his throne, his towering form casting a long shadow. "So, the humans sent a negotiator," he sneered. "Tell me, little man, what terms of surrender do you bring?" Brady met the king's gaze without flinching. I didn't come here to surrender. I came to offer you a choice. Peace or annihilation. Laughter erupted from the council, a deep, guttural sound that echoed through the chamber. Vorthak's eyes narrowed. You dare threaten the Kronthak Empire? Do you not see the power around you? Brady smirked. I see arrogance. I see a civilization so blinded by its own strength that it can't recognize the storm on the horizon. Humanity has faced extinction before, and every time we've come back stronger. Can your empire say the same? The laughter faded, replaced by a tense silence. Vorthak's nostrils flared as he stepped closer. You speak boldly for a man so small. Brady held his ground. Size doesn't win wars. Strategy does. Resilience does. And humans have both in spades. But if you insist on war, understand this. We won't just fight back. We'll end you. The room erupted in chaos, with council members shouting and guards tightening their grips on their weapons. Brady turned on his heel and began to walk away, his voice cutting through the noise. I'll leave you to consider your options, King Vorthak. Choose wisely. The Kronthak council chamber buzzed with tension as King Vorthak stood before his throne, his towering frame radiating fury. The audacity of the human ambassador was a crack in the Empire's carefully constructed facade of invulnerability. His council of generals and advisors watched in silence, their reptilian eyes darting between their enraged king and the human diplomat, standing defiantly in the center of the room. Lawrence Brady, calm but calculating, felt the weight of the moment. The alien guards flanking him tightened their grip on their weapons, ready to act on the slightest command. Yet, he refused to let fear show. He had come here knowing this confrontation would push the limits of diplomacy, and perhaps his own survival. King Vorthak's voice thundered. You dare insult the Kronthak Empire in its own hall? Your species crawled from the mud of an insignificant planet, and you speak as if you are our equals. Brady met the king's gaze with unflinching resolve. I speak as a man who represents a people who have survived against odds you can't comprehend. You mistake diplomacy for weakness, King Vorthak. But I assure you, humanity's patience has limits. The room erupted in laughter, the deep, guttural sound of the Kronthak reverberating through the chamber. Brady waited, letting the laughter die down before stepping forward, his boots clicking against the cold metal floor. You think this is a game, Brady said, his voice sharp and commanding. You think we came here because we're afraid. Let me tell you why we came. To offer you a choice. Peace or extinction. The laughter ceased abruptly. Brady's words cut through the bravado like a blade. The council members shifted uneasily, their confidence momentarily shaken. Vorthak, however, was unrelenting. Extinction? The king growled, his voice dripping with disdain. You dare threaten the Kronthak Empire? It's not a threat, Brady replied coldly. It's a reality. If you choose war, you'll discover what humanity is truly capable of. We've faced annihilation before, and we're still here. Can you say the same for your empire? Vorthak's clawed hand slammed onto the armrest of his throne, sending a metallic echo through the chamber. Enough of this, he roared. You are a speck, human, and specks are crushed. The king stood and descended the steps of his dais, towering over Brady. The tension in the room reached a breaking point. Brady could feel the weight of the moment. The line between negotiation and outright conflict was razor thin. Let me show you what happens to those who defy the Kronthak, Vorthak said, his voice low and menacing. As the king raised a clawed hand, Brady acted. In a single deliberate motion, he stepped forward and slapped Vorthak across the face. The sound echoed like a thunderclap in the stunned silence of the chamber. The guards froze, their weapons half raised, unsure of what to do. The council members stared in disbelief, their wide eyes fixed on Brady. Even Vorthak seemed momentarily paralyzed, his massive frame rigid with shock. Brady didn't waver. That, he said, his voice steady, is for underestimating humanity. Vorthack's shock turned to fury. His claws flexed, and a deep growl rumbled from his chest. "You dare." "I dare," Brady interrupted, his voice rising to match the king's. "Because your empire isn't as invincible as you think it is. You rely on fear to keep your enemies in line, but fear won't work on us. Not anymore." The council chamber descended into chaos. Advisors shouted over one another, some calling for Brady's execution, others urging caution. Brady remained still, his stance firm and his expression unreadable. Amid the uproar, one voice cut through the noise. It belonged to General Karnak, a veteran of countless campaigns and one of Vorthack's most trusted advisors. "My king," Karnak said, his tone measured, "perhaps we should consider the possibility that the human speaks the truth, if their fleet is as advanced as he claims." "Silence!" Vorthack roared, silencing the general with a glare. "This human insults our honor and challenges our supremacy. There will be no negotiation. Guards, seize him." The guards advanced, their weapons raised, but Brady raised a hand. "Before you act, consider this. Earth's fleet is already on the edge of your territory. One signal from me, and they'll know negotiations have failed. Do you really want to risk your empire on the assumption that we're bluffing?" The guards hesitated, glancing at one another. Brady's words hung heavy in the air. Vorthack's expression twisted with rage, but even he could not ignore the seed of doubt now planted in the room. The king's lips curled into a snarl. "You think you can intimidate us with empty threats? Your fleet will burn before it reaches our worlds." Brady allowed himself a small, knowing smile. "Perhaps. Or perhaps they're already closer than you think." The implication was clear. Brady had come prepared, and Earth's military might was not to be underestimated. The room fell into a tense silence, the weight of Brady's words pressing down on everyone present. "Mark my words, King Vorthack," Brady said, his voice calm but firm. "Humanity is not your prey. If you insist on this path, it will be your last mistake." With that, Brady turned and walked out of the chamber, flanked by the now hesitant guards. The council erupted into arguments behind him, but Brady didn't look back. He had delivered his message. Now! It was up to the Kronthak to decide their fate. The quiet hum of the force field surrounding Brady's quarters was a stark reminder of his precarious situation. Through the narrow, reinforced window, he could see the jagged skyline of the Kronthak capital, bathed in the fiery glow of its 3 moons. Outside, alien guards patrolled with mechanical precision, their expressions cold and unreadable. Inside, Brady paced, his mind racing. He had pushed King Vorthack further than anyone had dared, but he knew the confrontation had only just begun. His communicator vibrated softly in his pocket. Brady retrieved it and activated the encrypted channel. "Status?" Brady asked, his voice low. Commander Eli Hardy's face appeared on the holographic display. The stern, battle-hardened leader of Earth's First Fleet looked as steady as ever. "We're in position at the edge of Kronthak space," Hardy reported. "Fleet's on standby, but we're not going to move unless you give the word." Brady nodded. "Good. Keep the fleet quiet, but make sure the Kronthak know we're here. A little pressure goes a long way." Hardy's expression softened slightly. "And you? How long can you keep this up?" Brady smirked faintly. "Long enough. Just be ready." The connection ended, leaving Brady alone with his thoughts. The weight of humanity's survival pressed heavily on his shoulders, but he couldn't afford to falter. In the council chamber, chaos reigned. The slap heard across the galaxy had splintered the Kronthak council into factions. Some, led by the pragmatic General Karnak, argued for caution. Others, fiercely loyal to Vorthack's vision of dominance, demanded immediate retaliation. Karnak rose from his seat, his voice cutting through the cacophony. "Enough! We must consider the implications of this human's words. If their fleet is truly as advanced as he claims—" "They're bluffing," interjected Admiral Rasker, a staunch loyalist. His crimson scales glinted under the chamber's harsh light. The Kronthak Empire does not bow to threats from lesser beings. Karnak's gaze was steely. And what if they're not bluffing? What if we march to war and find ourselves facing annihilation? Vorthak, seated on his throne, listened in brooding silence. The king's pride demanded retribution, but even he couldn't ignore the undercurrent of unease spreading through his council. He clenched his claws, his mind torn between fury and calculation. At last, Vorthak spoke. Summon the human. If he wishes to play games, let us see how far he is willing to go. The guards retrieved Brady and escorted him back to the council chamber. The atmosphere was heavy, the air thick with unspoken tension. Brady's steps were measured as he entered the arena, his gaze sweeping over the assembled Kronthak leaders. He could see the cracks forming, divided loyalties, doubt creeping into even the most loyal advisors. Vorthak leaned forward on his throne, his eyes glowing with barely restrained anger. You claim your fleet waits at our borders, human. Prove it. Brady allowed a brief pause before responding, his voice calm but firm. Proof would be a breach of trust with my commanders, but let me make one thing clear. The decision to proceed lies with you. Humanity doesn't seek war, but we won't shy away from it either. The king's lip curled into a snarl. You expect us to cower before threats? No, Brady replied, stepping closer. I expect you to think. Your empire has thrived on the assumption that brute force is the ultimate power. But the galaxy is changing. Alliances are forming. Resistance is growing. If you don't adapt, you'll fall. A ripple of murmurs swept through the council. Brady's words weren't just directed at Vorthak. They were a calculated move to appeal to the others in the room. He could see some counselors nodding subtly, their expressions thoughtful. Karnak seized a moment. The humans speak sense. We cannot afford to underestimate their resolve or their allies. A war of annihilation could cost us everything. Admiral Rasker scoffed. This is cowardice disguised as wisdom. The Kronthak Empire has never bowed to lesser species, and we will not start now. Brady turned his gaze to Rasker. If war is what you want, Admiral, then let me paint you a picture. Earth's fleet doesn't just rely on numbers. It relies on innovation. Our weapons can disable entire star systems. Our soldiers are trained to adapt and overcome. Can you afford to take that gamble? The chamber fell silent again, the weight of Brady's words pressing down on the assembled leaders. Even Vorthak seemed momentarily lost in thought, his claws tapping rhythmically against the armrest of his throne. Hours later, Brady returned to his quarters, escorted once more by the silent guards. He sat at the small metal desk, his mind replaying the events of the day. The fractures in the Kronthak Council were deepening, but he knew the king's pride remained a formidable obstacle. As he prepared a report for Earth, his communicator vibrated again. This time it wasn't Hardy. The message was from an unexpected source, General Karnak. The holographic display illuminated Karnak's face, his expression guarded. Human, I will not waste words. You have sown doubt in the council, but doubt alone will not stop Vorthak. He is stubborn and dangerous. Brady leaned forward. And what about you, General? Where do you stand? Karnak's eyes narrowed. I stand for survival. If war comes, it will be a war we cannot win. But my influence alone is not enough to sway the king. If you have a plan, now is the time to act. A small smile crept onto Brady's face. Then let's give your king a final reason to reconsider. The scene shifts back to the council chamber, where Vorthak is preparing to make a public declaration of war. The chamber is packed with spectators, their guttural chants echoing through the arena. Brady stands to the side, flanked by guards, his expression unreadable. As Vorthak begins his speech, the chamber is suddenly plunged into darkness. A holographic projection fills the air, showing Earth's fleet in a synchronized display of power. Massive dreadnoughts shimmer against the void, their weapons glowing with restrained energy. The display ends with a single, chilling message. War is a choice. Choose wisely. The lights return, and the chamber is engulfed in chaos. Brady steps forward, his voice cutting through the din. That was a demonstration. King Vorthak, a small taste of what humanity is capable of. Are you willing to risk everything for pride? The council chamber was silent, the tension thicker than the oppressive heat of the Kronthak homeworld. King Vorthak remained seated on his throne, his claws gripping the armrest so tightly that the metal groaned under the pressure. His eyes flickered between the holographic image of Earth's fleet, now frozen mid-display, and Lawrence Brady, who stood resolute in the center of the chamber. The human ambassador's gambit had shaken the council to its core. Even the most hawkish among Vorthak's advisors seemed uncertain. Their once fervent chants of war now reduced to murmurs of doubt. The demonstration of Earth's fleet had been a calculated move, neither overtly hostile nor dismissive of Kronthak might, but a stark reminder that humanity was no longer a prey species. Brady broke the silence, his voice measured but firm. You asked for proof, King Vorthak. Now you have it. This is your chance to end the cycle of violence your empire thrives on. Work with us, and the galaxy will remember you as a leader who chose unity over destruction. Vorthak's lip curled, his pride battling against the growing unease in the room. He rose from his throne, towering over Brady, his voice low and dangerous. You presume to lecture me, human? To suggest that the Kronthak would stoop to alliances with creatures as insignificant as your kind. Brady held his ground, refusing to be intimidated. You're at a crossroads, Your Majesty. Continue down this path, and your empire risks extinction, not just at humanity's hands, but from the alliances that will form against you. Or you can adapt. Strength isn't just about crushing your enemies. It's about knowing when to make them your allies. General Karnak stepped forward, his heavy footsteps echoing through the chamber. My king, he said, his voice calm but insistent, the human speaks a difficult truth. Our empire has thrived on conquest, but the galaxy is no longer what it was. We must evolve if we are to endure. Admiral Rasker hissed in disdain. Cowardice, he spat. The Kronthak have never bowed to anyone, and we will not start now. Karnak's gaze locked with Rasker's, unyielding. Blind pride will not save us, Rasker. It will doom us. The two leaders glared at each other, the room crackling with unspoken tension. Vorthak watched the exchange, his expression unreadable. Brady could see the conflict in the king's eyes, pride and fury clashing against the growing realization of the stakes. At last, Vorthak raised a hand, silencing the chamber. Enough, he said, his voice heavy with authority. He turned his piercing gaze to Brady. You have made your point, human, but words and displays mean nothing without action. If your kind truly seeks peace, prove it. Brady inclined his head slightly. What do you propose? Vorthak gestured toward the far end of the chamber, where a map of Kronthak-controlled space shimmered into view. There is a contested system on the edge of our territory, a small but strategic planet claimed by both the Kronthak and one of your allies, the Valoran Confederacy. If humanity can negotiate a resolution that satisfies both parties, it will show us that you are as committed to peace as you claim. Brady recognized the trap instantly. The Valoran Confederacy, a fractious and volatile coalition, was infamous for its stubbornness. Negotiating with them was a near impossible task. But he also saw the opportunity. Very well, Brady said. But understand this. Peace is a two-way street. If we succeed, I'll expect the Kronthak to meet us halfway. Vorthak's eyes narrowed, but he nodded. Agreed. You have 1 week. Brady returned to his quarters to relay the development to Earth. The call with Commander Hardy was brief, but tense. You know they're setting you up to fail, Hardy said, his expression grim. Of course, Brady replied, but it's a chance to show them what humanity can do. Hardy sighed, rubbing the bridge of his nose. We'll keep the fleet ready. If this falls apart, we'll need to act fast. It won't come to that, Brady said, though even he wasn't entirely convinced. The next week was a blur of negotiations. Brady, with the help of Earth's diplomatic corps, worked tirelessly to broker an agreement between the Kronthak and the Valoran Confederacy. It required every ounce of his skill, leveraging alliances, making concessions, and crafting compromises that neither side could refuse. By the end of the week, Brady stood in the Kronthak council chamber once more, a formal treaty in hand. The Valoran Confederacy has agreed to cede partial control of the contested planet in exchange for a non-aggression pact and trade concessions, Brady announced. A resolution that benefits all parties. The chamber erupted in murmurs. Even Karnak seemed impressed. Vorthak, however, studied Brady with a calculating expression. "You have done what I thought impossible, human," Vorthak said at last. "But understand this. Peace with the Kronthak is not earned through words alone. It is earned through strength." Brady stepped forward, his voice resolute. "Then let strength guide us, not as enemies, but as allies. Together, we can shape a galaxy where strength serves more than conquest." The council erupted into debate once more, but the tide had turned. Karnak and his faction argued passionately for a new path, while Rasker and the hardliners clung to the old ways. Vorthak listened to both sides, his expression unreadable. At last, the king rose. "The Kronthak Empire will not bow," he said, his voice echoing through the chamber. "But we will not be fools either. The human has proven that their kind is not weak. They are resourceful." He turned to Brady, his gaze piercing. "You will deliver this treaty to Earth. But understand this, human. The Kronthak, do not forget, if your kind betrays this trust, there will be no negotiations next time." Brady nodded, recognizing the delicate balance of the moment. "We won't betray it. And I trust you won't either, Your Majesty." Vorthak's lip curled into something that might have been a smile or a snarl. Time will tell. As he gazes out the viewport, the Kronthak capital fades into the distance, a reminder of the challenges humanity still faces. The resolution is uneasy, but it is a start, a fragile hope for a future shaped not by war, but by understanding. As Brady's shuttle ascended through the dense atmosphere of the Kronthak homeworld, he reviewed the events of the past days in his mind. Every move had been a calculated risk, and every conversation had carried the weight of billions of lives. The fragile treaty in his hands represented not just a victory for diplomacy, but also a gamble on humanity's ability to maintain its footing in a galaxy teetering on the edge of chaos. The communicator at his side chirped softly, breaking his thoughts. He activated it, and Hardy's face appeared once again, the backdrop of Earth's First Fleet framing him like a shield of steel and light. "You made it out," Hardy said, his tone carrying a mix of relief and skepticism. "Barely," Brady replied, a weary smile tugging at his lips. "The treaty's signed, but it's as fragile as glass. One misstep, and everything shatters." Hardy frowned. "And Vorthak? What's your read on him?" Brady hesitated, considering his words. "He's dangerous, proud, calculating, and not easily swayed. But he's not reckless. He knows what's at stake, even if he won't admit it. For now, he'll honor the treaty, but we need to be ready for when his patience runs out." Hardy nodded grimly. "We always are." The transmission ended, leaving Brady alone once more. He looked out at the vast expanse of stars beyond the shuttle's viewport. Somewhere out there, humanity's allies were waiting, their trust as tenuous as the treaty itself. Somewhere else, the Kronthak fleet lurked, watching, waiting for any sign of weakness. Brady excisnered slowly, the weight of his role settling heavily on his shoulders. This was only the beginning. The galaxy wasn't a place for the faint-hearted, but Brady knew one thing for certain. Humanity would not back down. Not now. Not ever.